Denitsa, it's really nice to meet you, and thank you so much for agreeing to do our podcast today. We've actually never met before, so it's going to be really nice for people who are listening and watching that they're going to hear us chatting away about business and about what you do and maybe a little bit about what I do. So let's hope they enjoy it as much as us. So, okay, what I'll start with then is I'll just start by saying, would you mind please just telling us a little bit about who you are, tell us a little bit about what you do, and let's get this conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. And hello to everybody who is listening or watching us today. As Richard mentioned, we haven't met before, so we're going to introduce each other. I am a financial advisor, and I opened my own practice with St. James's Place about 6-7 months ago. So all relatively new, Richard, and I think it really goes within your idea of startup and side hustles of people that you want to interview.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and thank you for that introduction. That's great. So, all right. So would you tell us a little bit about what your business actually does then? So maybe, who your clients are, what services or products you're offering them. I think people would really like to know a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So most of my clients, I would say about 90% are women. And this is because when I was thinking of starting my business, one of the things I wanted to tackle is closing or making it as small as possible, the gender wealth gap. So one of the things I wanted to focus was that, and also making financial advice accessible to everyone. And that's not to say I don't see men, Richard. Of course I do, and I have clients who are men. But the purpose or what made me start up the business was to tackle this gender wealth gap, the gender payment gap, the pension gap. So all these things that are connected with the disadvantages of women and finance, whether it's through their education, whether it's because they accepted the role in the family to be the person who doesn't deal with finances, or they just didn't know where to start. I mean, I've had just last week, I was speaking with someone and we were just going through one of the stages of my review. And at one point she just stopped and said, but Denitsa, why didn't I know about this? Why did nobody tell me about this before? I should have learned that at school. I should have known this. And, I agree, but I mean, there's nothing I can do about the past. I can't go back there. And there's lots that is happening now in terms of financial education for people who are at school. But what is happening is that, what about the people who have missed that? People like me or your generation, I mean, we're the same generation, people who didn't have the financial education at school. Where do they start? How do they learn about all these things? So this, through a bit of soul searching during my maternity leave, which was also during the pandemic, led me to, well, what do I want to do next? Who do I want to help? How do I want to come to that?
Oh, thank you. That's really interesting that you share that. And I have to say, for you to say we're a similar generation, you're just being far too nice there. So thank you so much for that one. You've just made me feel 20 years younger. So that's a really, really interesting story. And I love the way you've explained that. And I think that one of the things that really interests me is that you very, very quickly knew the target audience. You had that clarity around who you felt passionate about wanting to help and wanting to support. I've had a number of podcasts before, and one lady I was talking to, who's a marketing lady called Emma, she was on the podcast before you. And she was basically, as an expert marketer, saying that we really need to understand who it is that we're specifically trying to help. Because that's going to help us with our marketing approach. And I think it also helps with what you've talked about, which is identifying how you can really help that type of person or that type of individual with some passion, knowledge, and information that you might have. So that was really, really interesting to hear that bit. Can I ask you a question? How or why did you decide that it was the inequality or that wealth gap between men and women? What happened, if you don't mind me asking, that made you focus on that?
Yeah, of course. It's a bit of a long story, but I'll try to shorten it as much as I can. So as I briefly mentioned, I was in my maternity leave when I started rethinking my values or what I want to do next. I was in asset management before for about 10 years, which is a very similar industry, still under the wide financial services umbrella. And after the birth of my second child, I came to realize that the current work-life balance, or the lack of, is not really working for me anymore. It's just not sustainable. So I started thinking, okay, but what can I do next? I really enjoy being in finance. I enjoy the financial services. I don't quite like the work-life balance. What is it that I could do that would combine this? And it started a bit of exploratory journey, a soul searching. What do I like doing? Who would I like to serve? And it wasn't as clear. It was clear that I want to do something else, but I don't know what. And previously, I was in a more analytical type of role, so not client-facing. And at that time, actually, the pandemic happened, which made everybody, I mean, apart from the devastating effect on some people, of course, it made everybody rethink what they do. And also, there was an element of working from home, and for those of us who are parents, homeschooling. And what I've noticed is that this added just another dynamic to already a full list of responsibilities that women have, and some men. I'm not saying that it's all women, but the majority, and what could be seen on articles and research, is that the women are picking up the homeschooling and already adding to lists like looking after their home and looking after their children. So this got me really interested in the subject, and I knew a lot about the gender pay gap because I was a person who was working in an industry that was male dominated, and I knew that actually if you compare the salaries, then I wasn't as well paid as my male counterparts. But I also started being more interested about all these other gaps that come later. So these are the pension gap or the gender wealth gap. And there was a lot of research that was coming. What is leading to that? Now, a lot of the reasons for these gaps are because women decide to go part-time working during their careers, or even sometimes leaving these careers. So of course, that's leading to gaps in their pensions and in their wealth. And in addition to that, a lot of research was showing that when it comes to savings and retirement, women don't have as clear paths, or they don't know as much as men do. And sometimes this could be because the arrangement of the partnership, the family, is that the men will look after the finances, which is fair as long as the dynamic worked. But when it didn't work is when there is financial abuse. So there will be like the men are actually controlling the money. And it could happen the other way around. It could be the man that is at home looking after the children, but the woman is actually controlling the money and not having access to, you're not going to be part of the decisions. And not only that, but what happens if you get divorced or something happens to your partner? You all of a sudden, you find yourself in a super stressful situation where you're just coping with something terrible, like a death or a separation. And the last thing on your mind is like, oh, I need to think about, can I still afford to live in this place? So all of this started kind of adding together. And I was thinking, well, what can I do? I would love to help. How can I help? And this is how I came to, actually financial advice is how I can help. And that was, Richard, that was only first step one of the journey. But I was kind of like, okay, that ticks all my boxes. It's what I'm good at, who I want to help with, and actually doing something that I feel it's changing somebody's life. And that's giving me a great satisfaction. But it was a bit of a long story, but that was only, I think, the first step, the realization of why do I want to do this next?
That's so exciting to hear all of that. And thank you for sharing it. There's so many nuggets of really interesting information there. And I've just made a couple of notes. And as you alluded to at the beginning about this podcast being for people who are either started a business or they're thinking about it, like you said, the side hustles and startups. So I'd like to pick up on a couple of things, really. Number one, it was you mentioned when you were talking lots of times when you were asking yourself really helpful questions. How do I help? What do I need to do? How can I address this problem that I'm seeing? And I've done quite a lot of work on how our brain actually is so powerful. And yet, as we grow up as young people and we turn into adults, no one ever teaches us how our brain actually works. And one of the things that I found out is that there's something in our brain called the reticular activating system. It's called RAS. And when you actually focus or think about something, your brain then puts all of its attention into that specific area. And a really good example that I give is that when I was a young man, 22, 23, my first wife was pregnant and she got the bump. And now I start to see pregnant women everywhere. I'd never seen a pregnant woman at 22, 23, and now they're everywhere. And when I do my workshops and talks, I'll often hear some people say they remember that happening when they got their first car, or they remember that happening when they buy a dress and then everyone else is wearing it. And so what I've worked out and realized and learned from other people is that some people are really good, and it seems to be quite natural, whether it's genetic or whatever, their brain asks really helpful questions. And then I've realized from speaking to people and doing my research that some people's brains ask really negative questions. So, for example, if someone is overweight and they want to lose weight, if their brain says, why can't you lose weight? The brain will search for an answer. And it will tell you why you can't lose weight. You can't lose weight because you're lazy. You can't lose weight because you don't eat healthily. And you can't lose weight because you're a loser. And all these answers come flying in. And what I realized is that if you can ask what I call a power question, a positive question, how can I lose weight and enjoy it? Now my brain's thinking, well, you really enjoy golf. You want to get better at golf. Why don't you start going to the gym? Why don't you maybe see if you can loosen up your back and do some swimming? And now all of a sudden I'm getting all these helpful ideas. And I just found it fascinating that the way you described a lot of your initial thoughts around how you could take what you'd learned before and turn this into an opportunity for you, being a mom, looking after the children, being at home, you've got this skill set. How can you help other women in these challenging situations? That your brain is asking some real power questions there. So is that something that you do naturally and automatically? Have you ever thought about this before, or what's your thoughts on that?
Thanks so much for bringing this, Richard. I was actually I didn't want to look on the side, but I did want to write this down. Did you call it was RAS? Is that how it's called?
Yeah, reticular activating system, RAS. Yeah, and whatever we think about, that's what the brain will focus on.
I wasn't aware of the term, but when you did mention the pregnancy and the wife, that's exactly what happened to me as well. When I was pregnant, I could see more pregnant women. And I think similarly to when I was doing a little bit of soul searching or asking myself, what do I want to do next? It was at that time that I started noticing things. It was at that time that I started noticing people on Facebook posting, I really don't know what to do with my finances. I've been furloughed. I'm really struggling at the moment. During this pandemic, my husband and me decided to separate. We've been spending so much time at home, so we decided that it's not working for us anymore. But the problem is that I haven't been involved in any financial decisions before. What do I do? So I think when you now mentioned it, it started resonating that I was actually subconsciously, I think that's how I understand it, I was subconsciously looking for these things. And it's not that they weren't there before, Richard, they were. I wasn't aware of them. So I just opened my mind to what can I help with? What are people struggling with? What are the pain points, as I say? And it just opened up because I was looking for it. But thank you so much for that. I'll actually do a bit more research on that. It was really interesting.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, thanks for that reply. That was interesting. So one of the ways I actually have noticed these types of things is that when you, like you've said, open your mind and start to ask questions, things then start to happen. It's called the law of attraction. I think it's very much in a book called The Secret, where it talks about this law of attraction. But what I've found is that if you start to ask questions, you can now start to change and affect your future. So I remember a lady that I read about her business, and her name is Genevieve Theers. And she was sat outside a university. There's a theme here about pregnant women, because this is funny. So she was sat outside this university, and there was some steps in front of her. And she saw this pregnant woman holding a child's hand walking up these steps. And it took her quite a while to get to the top. She was reading a notice board, and then she came down and walked off. And Genevieve Theers, because her mind was open and questioning what she was seeing, why has that woman just walked up those stairs? She went up the stairs after and read that it was a poster for babysitters. And in that moment, a little bit like you have had a bit of a light bulb moment, she had a light bulb came on in her mind, and she decided to create a platform and a website which connected women or families that needed babysitters with the babysitters. That business became called Sitter City in the United States. And I think that it became worth about $40 million. And all it basically does is connect people who want babysitters with them. And so I just find that really interesting that, you mentioned about the power of thought and questions. And the other thing that you mentioned is you've kind of got this, it's now in your soul. You said you did the soul searching. And what I can tell already just from talking to you for a short time is that you found your passion. You found something that is now bigger than you, because now you're starting to understand and resonate with women in this situation, and you know that you can now make a difference. And what I call that is a vision. And if everyone can create a vision of the future that's bigger than them as an individual, and that helps people, provides them with knowledge and skill set, and you wrap that around a business model, which is how you make your money, then all of a sudden the world becomes a different place. And there's a really interesting book by, it's called Man's Search for Meaning, and it's by a guy called Viktor Frankl. And he was a psychologist, and he actually ended up being in Auschwitz. It's quite a harrowing first part of the book. But the second part of the book is fascinating, because he goes on to explain that in the midst of all this suffering and pain, there were some people that were able to find a way through it with helpful, positive thoughts. But there were some people that just couldn't cope in the same situation. And he developed a therapy called logotherapy. And he was one of the lucky ones. He survived, he came out, he started his psychology practice. And it was all about helping people understand why they are on this planet. So for those who are listening, you can tell I'm passionate about what I do. Everyone will be able to tell that you're passionate about what you do. And I think that we're so fortunate to have been able to have found our reason why we have been born, our reason for being on this planet. My mission, you've explained, I'll tell you my mission. My mission is to help 1 million people around the world create and start a digital business in some way, shape, or form. That's my vision of tomorrow, 1 million people. How do I get there is what I do every day. And that's called your mission. So you talked about problems that your clients face, mainly women. Well, if your mission can solve their problems, so my mission is to simplify the complicated process of helping people start business or grow them and expand them. So for those who are listening, you need a vision. Like Denitsa and I have got our vision of the future. The mission is what we do every day to get to that vision statement. So I just wanted to share that with you and all of our listeners and viewers.
No, that's brilliant, Richard. And I think we can certainly talk a little bit about coming to starting the business, because it's not just, I did a little bit of soul searching and then I realized that's what I want to do. The journey doesn't end there. For anyone who is listening or watching us after this is submitted, it doesn't end there. I believe in having a solid business plan. So after I decided that this is what I want to do, and I got inspired to open my own practice with the help of St. James's Place, I wrote a very detailed business plan about what the business would look like, what do I stand for, what are my values, who my clients would be, who would need my help, and then also estimated revenue for the next 5 years. Obviously, you can't predict the future, but there was the estimates there. And something that was really important, I feel, was the values. And why am I doing this? Because have all days or all weeks been easy? Have people been knocking on my door asking for my advice? Well, no, I'm self-employed and I need to find my own clients. And some weeks, some days have been hard. And leaving a secure job where you're paid a monthly salary and you have the stability to going to do something on your own without knowing what's going to happen, it is scary. It takes a big leap of faith. So having a solid business plan, I think, is super essential. And when things are not as smooth, then you go back to, as you said, Richard, your vision, your mission. Why am I doing this? Do I really believe in that? And without that, I just don't think it works. I mean, there's so many brilliant ideas that people come up with in terms of startups. They are really brilliant, but without you having the plan, I don't think that works.
Yeah, thank you. That's excellent. And actually, to add to that, if you, like you say, if you've got your vision of what you want to do, your mission of what you're going to do every day, and then wrapped in the middle to help with that is that business model that you alluded to. Now, for those who are listening, maybe you don't know the difference between a business plan and a business model. And I'll just share that because it took me a few years to find that out. A business plan is how you explained it. It's your whole plan for the whole idea. It's the marketing, it's the summary of how you're going to do it, it's the clients, it's the approach, it's the sales, it's everything. A business model is one way that you generate revenue. And that's what I recommend for everyone that needs their business to succeed quite quickly. If they haven't got a lot of finance behind them, you need that vision, you need that passion. Then what you need is you need a business model. In other words, one clear way of, if I offer this, or if I make this, or if I sell this, this is what I'm going to get for revenue. This is what it's going to cost me. And this is my clear profit. And for those who are thinking of starting something, if you can organize and sort out what that business model is quite quickly, and then quickly get it to market, which is what many people call a minimum viable product, you can then find your first customers, which are called early adopters. And you're always going to find someone who loves what you do. And that's your chance to start to build on it, nurture it, change it a little bit, tweak it as you keep moving towards that vision. And I think with what you've mentioned and what I've mentioned, there's a few little nuggets there for people that are thinking about starting their own business.
So that's brilliant. Thank you so much for adding to that and clarifying. This is super important, and hopefully it's very helpful for those who are listening today. But as you alluded to, it, passion is really, really important. And I do recall that years ago, maybe even 15 years ago, somebody that I knew, a friend actually, we were having dinner, and she said, "I love my job." And at the time, I was like, "This is so fake. I mean, you can't possibly love your job." I didn't love my job. I mean, it was a job that I like the intellectual challenge? Yes. Did I like the payment? Yes. But did I love my job? No. And I couldn't believe that someone could possibly love their job, because to me, it was the means to provide the things that I wanted to have in life. And it's only when I started this that I finally started to understand, what does it mean to love it? What does it mean when somebody actually calls me and say, "Thank goodness for you. I really appreciate that you came and sorted all this for me." When somebody said that, I was just like, previously, I think, Richard, you said how passionate you are about what you do. And I mentioned how much I love what I do. And I could just think, what if somebody who is listening to us is in a place where they're like, "What are these people talking about? I'm in a job that I don't enjoy. I don't love it. What are they talking about?" But people, it's possible. It's possible when you find your thing.
Yeah, you're right. And actually as well, you know, people who are listening, the other thing to take from this is it also depends what you want from your life. Because do you know what? There are some people, I mean, I was talking to someone the other day and I've actually looked at this, and there are different aspects to our lives. We've got our business, our career, we've got personal relationships, family relationships, there's religion, health, fitness. There's all these different aspects to our lives. And if we think about the ones that we feel, if we scale, if we go 0 is it feels really bad, one of those parts of our lives, and 10 is like the happiest and the most successful you feel with it. if you think about something for you in your life that maybe scales up at a 10 or a 9, and then you've got something that scales up at maybe a 1 or a 2 and you're not very happy, it's really good for you to start to question what you actually want from your life. Because for some people, if the most important thing for you is family, health, friendship, well, then if you can get a good career that pays you well, but it means that you can finish at 5 or 6 o'clock, maybe you can work hours that you talked about earlier about that work-life balance. And then you can come home, you don't have to bring the stress with you, it's not your business, it's not your responsibility, and you can then spend that time in your happy place. But there are going to be some people who actually, for them, taking control of their future, looking to expand on that financial security and wanting to be a business owner, that becomes their reason why that I talked about before. So, I definitely meet people that might learn about and think about starting a business and then think, do you know what, actually listening to what Richard and some of their clients go through, I don't think it's for me. And that's a good result. And so, for those that are listening, and actually I'll ask you this as well, Denitsa, if it's okay, is there something out of those areas that I just talked about, those different life categories, is there something in your life that you would say is an 8 or a 9 or a 10 and that you feel is like amazing? Is there anything that you would share in any of those categories?
Well, first off, Richard, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree that it's not for everyone, or it may be for somebody, but not at this stage. So if you ask me, for example, 10, 15 years ago, then I would have different priorities. I wouldn't have gone that route. And even today, or like a year ago, because I only started 6, 7 months ago, it wasn't the route that I was initially planning for. I was thinking to then maybe start being a financial advisor, wealth planner in a company. That was my first initial thought. So there's always a time. So it takes personality and it takes the time. So it may not be suitable for you today. It may be suitable for you 10 years after today, or it may not be suitable for you. So it just ticked for me at the time. And in terms of what you were saying of the grading, family definitely comes on top of the list. And this is one of the reasons that I alluded in the very beginning, because I have 2 children, 2 small children. So they're 2 boys, they're 3 and 6. And I really enjoyed spending time with both of them during the pandemic. Now, the pandemic was a really devastating time for the nation and worldwide. But what allowed working parents to do is be there for the moments you wouldn't normally be there for. And it kind of opened your eyes to what you're missing out. And now, I don't want this to sound like, oh, now I'm having a go at working parents for missing these moments. It just, for me, I really thought I don't want to miss those moments. And it doesn't mean being there every day at pickup or drop off. No, but it does mean being there for the sports day. It does mean being there for that performance. Things that in some jobs, in some careers, you may not be able to have the flexibility. And I love that I'm giving myself that flexibility. I'm not asking for that permission. And previously, when I've asked for such permission, it would kind of give me a label or a name that this is my priority, like my family is my priority, not the career. And I do passionately believe that they could both be super important. And I hope that the world is waking up to allowing people who are, and it's not only about parents, actually, let's not limit to that. This is what I relate to, but it could be that actually you're working, but you're also very passionate about something else. You're very passionate about a charity, and you do want to take that day off because there is a charity run, or you want to climb a mountain. You want the flexibility to go there. And I kind of like went to totally a different direction, but
No, you did. That was perfect. No, that's a great answer. And what you alluded to there, when I said about something in those different life choices for you, what would you score highly? You've already said, we know for you, out of a scale of 0 to 10, I'd say business and your own business, you're going to be marking that 8, 9, 10. And you've just said family. So that's going to be probably a 10. And for those who are listening, if you've got something in your life that's high, it's because you've got a vision of it. So you know what a happy family looks like. You knew what you wanted that relationship to be like with you and your children, and if there's partners and grandparents and all of those things, you had a vision of that. And what you do every day is you're doing something to make that happen. And that's why it feels so high in your priority. Same with your business. When you're not with family, you're on business. That's an 8, 9, or a 10 because you've already shared your vision with us for your business and you're doing something every day to move towards it, even if you're only thinking about it. So for those who are listening, and for you as well, actually, Denitsa, because I do this all the time, if you now think of something in your life that is a 1 or a 2, the reason why it feels so low and you maybe don't feel happy about it is because A, you probably haven't got a very good vision of what it needs to be, and B, you're not doing something every day to make it happen. So let's fit this round now to what you do. Because if there's anyone listening and they score finance as a 0 or a 1, and actually that's exactly your client base is women who are trying to close this gap, and maybe they do feel like that's a part of their life where they'd score it up 2 or a 3. How might you go about helping them with that vision of what closing the gender gap looks like, or helping them get financial independence? How do you help them create that vision for them? And then maybe what kind of action steps do you try and take them through to help them?
So I think, Richard, it comes to a couple of things, actually. So it's the work I do with my clients, of course, and they are, as I said, women and men, but predominantly women at the moment. And what we do when we first meet is we create a strategy, we create a plan of working together based on their goals and their priorities. And we put their money into work so that it can provide them with the lifestyle they wish to have. So in a sense, we paint a picture and then I help them get to that, how to get there. Now, something you alluded to is when they think that the priority or in their life, they would rank it as a 1 or even a 0. Now, this could come because of various reasons. And I could give myself and a couple of my clients as an example. And this comes to financial education, which you alluded I'm very passionate about, is because we were never taught that at school. So in the back of your mind, it actually you never resonated with it growing up. You didn't hear of it. So of course it's going to be a low priority because you don't know anything about it. So my job is to, of course, educate as well. And something that I'm doing, and I have a couple of talks lined up and webinars, is on financial education. And this is financial education on people who might be of our age, I'm saying it again, that haven't had the financial education before. So then I come to their work and I do a seminar, a webinar on what are some of the instruments that you need to be aware of, what are some of the tax benefits that you could take advantage of. And I can make it as broad or as detailed as they want to relate to them and to their certain profession. So as an example, I'll give the NHS, who might be very different to some of the corporate environments. And in addition to that is the financial advice, the financial education in schools. So for the younger generation, and as I alluded, I have 2 young children. So one of the books that I read to my children is Saving Your Acorns. I'm not sure if you know about this book, but listeners or watchers, just look it up. It might be helpful if you have young children. So something I didn't have when I was growing up, and I'm sure that many people relate to that, is we were never really taught about money. I was recently speaking with a client who said she remembers her parents seeing financial advisor. And she asked, what is this, mommy and daddy? And they said, no, this is for adults. This is an adult conversation. We don't talk about money. We don't talk about money with our children. This is a separate, it's not your business, child. And what I'm trying to do, and I think I would advise every parent to do, is just try to engage to their level, of course. Try to engage the children in those conversations. Is something I'm trying to do with my children, which actually helps them understand what I do. Now, the 3-year-old may not really grasp everything I'm trying to say, but the 6-year-old definitely does. So just briefly about this book, Saving Your Acorns. It's about the squirrels saving the acorns, but it's not, not eating them all at the same time, so you can see they're digging the holes, but it's actually not only saving, but with that seed planting, and this will grow a tree. So that relates to money and compound interest when you invest them. So it's not only putting them on the side, like in your jar or under the mattress or in a bank account. It's actually investing them so they grow more. And my older one recently lost two of his teeth. So the tooth fairy came, and he had £2 because he lost two teeth at the same day. So he started having the conversation with me, "Mommy, now I have £2. What should we do about that? I really want to be wise. I want to be wise with my acorns." And it really, I was really proud of him at that moment, because I was like, oh, actually, all this I was speaking about, you're starting to resonate with it and you're starting to understand. And I really think that will help them further in life.
That's excellent story. I love that story, and yeah, I'll have a look at that one. That's a good one. So actually, this has been a fascinating talk, and I'm so pleased that we arranged this. And I'd actually one little thing to finish off with, because I think it'd be a bit remiss for people that are involved in business not to talk about Web3 and not to talk about crypto and blockchain and NFTs and metaverse. And that is a huge passion of mine. I'm actually involved in a blockchain business. We're going to be launching a crypto and an NFT project. So everyone that's watching and listening, watch this space, because we're going to help educate people in it. So what are your thoughts, just briefly, around the regulated market that you obviously operate in, and the wild west of the deregulated Web3? What's your thoughts around that at the moment?
So Richard, as you probably know, I'm regulated. I'm FCA regulated, so the Financial Conduct Authority. And unfortunately, these instruments are not regulated yet. So that means that when I speak with clients, I can't actually give advice on such instruments. And do I really hope that direction will change? Oh, yeah, definitely. Do I think they have a place? Oh, yes, definitely. But due to the nature of being not regulated, it's not something that I have in my suite of instruments. So the things that we advise on would be bonds, and then equities and properties and alternatives. But when I speak about alternatives, for those who are listening and watching us, I'm more alluding to gold and not to crypto. So the sad reality is, Richard, as a financial advisor, I will not be able to advise on these instruments. But yeah, I'm very passionate about seeing where that goes. And hopefully it becomes one of the things that we can include in our product suite.
Oh, thank you for that answer, because it's good for people to know that obviously with your status and position that you are regulated, which is a nice comfort for people to know that might be using your services. Actually, did you notice that the Chancellor not long ago in the UK launched they were doing an NFT. So that's quite interesting, that obviously the governments around the world are definitely looking at this. So, well, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. And if it's okay, I've got one last question I like to ask people. Although for you, with you not been doing your business not quite 12 months yet, this question, I don't know if it'll quite work, but we'll go for it anyway, because I'm asking it everybody. If you could go back 7 months and give yourself a little bit of advice for when you started, or when you were just about to get started, what advice would you give yourself 7 months ago that you're already picking up and learning now that might help you?
Lovely, amazing question. What advice would I give myself is, I think I've largely followed that, but just being true to your values. And once you've made the decision that this is what you want to do, stick to it. Like, be very clear about what is it that you do, what do you stand for, what are your values, and be very clear about who you want to be associated with. So in the early days of launching my business, of course, I need to promote myself, or I want more clients. Of course, I mean, I would love to have more clients, but sometimes the people that I would meet will not be the right clients. They will not share my values. And I think it was really important to stick to that. Or there might be people who would message me on Instagram, because I'm on Instagram, and they'll be like, let's collaborate, let's do a live together, let's do something together. And it would be really hard to say no, knowing that that influencer has like 1 million followers, or that person who wants to work with you might bring you more money. But you need to stick to, what are your values? What do you want to be known as? And I'll just say from the very beginning, just follow that, and everything else will fall into place. It might be slower because you wouldn't have that person behind you that is the influencer, or it might be slower because you have to say no to a couple of people that are not suited to your business, but things will happen and people will be like, okay, yes, this is the brand that I trust.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And, kind of connecting with that, it's so hard when you start a business if you're creative, because if you're quite innovative and creative and enterprising, which you need to be as an entrepreneur and a business owner, the challenge is, as you create your way into developing your idea, writing the business plan, putting together and thinking about how you're going to make it all work, sometimes it's then very difficult to stay focused on that business model. One thing I like to share with people is, it's what people don't realize is, when you start the business, it's just you in your head. But the moment the business is live and you've got clients and you've got revenue, that business now doesn't care about your thoughts and feelings. That business now needs to operate. It needs to be financially successful. But yet you're still there as well. And if you are naturally creative, it can be very easy to want to keep exploring and trying things and going down rabbit holes and pathways that can distract the business with the original idea. So just to reinforce and support what you're saying, is that for those who are listening and thinking what to do, or what you want to do, you've got to make sure that either you or your team are staying focused on delivering that vision, delivering that business model, and at the end of the day is providing results and value for your clients. Because if clients aren't getting results and they don't get value from what you offer, then they're not going to stay with you anyway. So focus on your clients, focus on the value and the results that you get them, and don't get distracted. I think that's great advice that you've just given us.
Thank you so much, Richard. And if I could ask actually a similar question, just back at you, because how long has it been since you started?
Yeah, so I came up with the idea of providing educational information around becoming an entrepreneur in September 2014. That's when I had the idea. And then I'd say that I was still working, came up with a few ideas, started to put some courses together. At the time, it wasn't called vlogging, it was called blogging. So now I'm showing my age. And I was reading about drop shipping, affiliate marketing, and I didn't know if this was a scam. I didn't know what to believe. A little bit like some people now looking at Web3 and thinking, is it a scam? Don't know what to believe. So I basically dived into it, learned it, understood it better, and then started to realize, a bit like you have with financial education, information and guidance and coaching, that actually there was some real fundamental information that people needed to know to be able to improve and enhance their chances. So we started to get real traction probably around the middle of 2016. We started to work with the MOJ, the prison system. We've got contracts with them. We've worked with the Professional Footballers Association. We've worked with some under-19 football players at Manchester United. So we've been very fortunate in some of the clients we've worked with. And then we are now starting to widen for me to reach my vision. And now we're starting to add other business models onto the business plan. Other revenue streams which connect with the way that you market, offering value at different price points. And we've got a platform now. We're about to do digital marketing campaigns. So we're now starting to reach out to the individual, what people call B2C, business to consumer or direct to consumer market, whereas we've also got business clients as well. So I've gone through so many challenges, but then what's quite ironic about what I do is the challenges I've faced and the problems I've overcome That's exactly what I'm sharing in my program. A little bit like with yourself, as you're looking at your own financial assets and wealth for your own independence as part of your family, what you've learned, the mistakes you've made, and what you've done that's right, you're obviously able to now share that with your clients. So that's a quick snapshot.
No, that's brilliant. I was just, because it's amazing that you always ask these questions to people who come on the podcast, but I think for the listeners, it's very interesting to find out your view. Like, what would you advise the version of you, let's say 12 months ago?
Oh, you're good at this. You need to start a pod. If you're not doing a podcast, you need to get one started and then get me on. Yeah. So that's a great question. So the advice I give myself is, there's so many things I could say, and that's part of the problem, isn't there? Because there's so many things to do. But if I was starting again, it would have to be what you've alluded to. It is find the business model, find what you understand, where you can make your money, align it to a passion that's bigger than just you, that's got a purpose to it, because that way you're going to keep going when it gets difficult. And once you've tested it with your first customers, and you start to refine it and improve it, don't then get distracted. Stay focused on that, because that's what's going to feed you. I've got this great story. I'll do it as quick as I can because I know time's running on. And if I've said it before on the podcast, I apologize, because when you get to my age, you forget what you've said. But there's this great story I was told by a fantastic consultant, business coach. And he said to me, in Africa, it's the female lions that do all the hard work, a little bit like in our society, isn't it, really? The women are bringing up the kids, which, by the way, that is the most important job in the world, period. Any woman who's bringing up children, doing any work of any type, and let's be honest, majority of them doing a lot of the work at home, not always, like you've said, but come on, let's all hold our hands up here. That children that have got moms that are doing those things, respect. So anyway, back to the story. So we've got the female lions. They catch the food while we've got the lazy men lions lying down. Not only do they do that, but they also train the young lions as they grow up into adulthood how to hunt. And this story that he told me was this female lion, she got about 5 or 6 young lions, lionesses. She'd put them into the right position. She's teaching them how to hunt. They all squat down. They've seen a zebra. They're all in the right positions. And she's taught them, when she gives the signal, that they all go for the hunt. Anyway, they're all crouched down. It's the first time some of them are having a go at it. One of the younger lions gets spooked by a warthog. The warthog jumps up. The young lion's there. It's in front of him. He gets excited. He runs after it before the signal. The warthog escapes. The zebra escapes, and it's chaos. And the lioness, the female lion, goes over to that young male lion. And what do you think she does? We're talking about, obviously, the animal kingdom. What do you think she does to that young lion when she goes up to it? I got this wrong, by the way, when I guessed. So you have a guess.
It certainly would be very different to my reaction. Don't tell me she ate him.
Say that again, sorry.
Did she eat her cub?
No, she didn't eat him. But I actually said, did she hit him? Did she? And actually, what happened is, she played with him.
So it's not so different, actually, to my reaction.
She played with him because what she was doing was getting him relaxed. And then in the way that the animals do it, she then taught him again, reinforced it, and then they go again. They're back into position. So later on in the afternoon, they're going for the second try. The zebra's in the middle. They're down. She gives the signal. They're all up at the right time. They attack. They kill the zebra. It's a success. Why does the female lion teach them to hunt the zebra properly and not to get distracted by the warthogs? Why do you think?
Well, the thing I can think about from my point of view, from investment, is there's always noise. And I'm thinking about investment rather than business, but it could relate to it. So markets fall, there are things happening, and that I call noise, like a side noise. So sometimes this could be, it's distracting you from your goal and your priorities. But let's think about your end goal. What did what did you want the money to provide? Or you were saving towards buying a property abroad or education for your child. Let's remember that we are aiming for something that's going to happen in 3 years' time. And remember what do we want to achieve versus that side noise that is like, oh, markets are down, markets are up, what's happening?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Not getting distracted. So let me ask you a question again. I'll rephrase it then. So why do we want to stay focused on the zebra? What does the zebra give us that the warthog doesn't give us?
So this is the end goal, your mission.
Just think about the animals, though. Don't think about your business for now. Just think about the animals. Yeah. So if we can, yes. So why is the zebra better than the warthog? Why? For the animals, because it feeds them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the idea of that story that my business coach taught me is that your business model and your clients and understanding how all of that works, that's going to feed your business. It's going to feed you because it works for everybody apart from the zebra, but that's the life cycle. Yeah. If we go for the zebras, the distractions that you talked about, the influencers, the other people coming in and distracting you from your vision, that's not going to feed you for the future. So for everyone who's listening, this really helped me. And it alludes to the question you asked me is I used to get distracted a lot because someone would say, do you want to come to a networking event? Why don't we talk about business ideas? And because I thought I was this really clever, good business person, I think, yeah, let's talk business. Because I didn't realize then when I was beginning that actually I was distracting myself and these were all loads of warthogs running around that were never going to help me grow my business properly and look after my proper clients. So to answer your question, for me, it's this, I would go back to myself, when I was starting, and I'd say, know exactly what it is that you're trying to create, who it's for, what the business model is, and don't get distracted by the warthogs.
I love it, Richard. And I really love this analogy. And I didn't know this about the animal kingdom. So thank you for sharing that story and that analogy. And it's great to hear from your point of view, because you've been in this world of startups and running your own business for much longer than I have. So I'm pretty sure that it's very useful for everyone listening.
Thank you. And it's been a pleasure to meet you. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, could you maybe just share with everyone now what your website is or your social media? We will, of course, put this across all of our platforms. We'll connect and share with you as well so people can reach out. But have you got a website or social or?
Yeah, I have a website. It's Denitsa Minkova WM, that's for wealthmanagement.co.uk. And I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. On Facebook, Denitsa Minkova Wealth Management, and on Instagram, Denitsa Minkova Wealth. And we'll have the links after, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. And it's been a pleasure to meet you. And do you know what? I do say this as well to people. If you're interested, it'd be great again in the future to maybe come back in 10, 12 months time and maybe let us know how things are going and what's been happening to you in your world and how the business is evolving. So, and if you look, like I said, you asked me some great questions. So maybe when you start your podcast, you could let us know how that's going as well.
I love it, Richard. And you know what? I actually, this is something very similar to what I do with my clients. So we see each other. We create back to that picture that we paint together, and the life plan. We actually come back to it in 12 months and just review it. And it's so interesting to actually come back to that. This is something that I'm hoping to do because, as I said, I've been running it for 6-7 months. So yeah, well, I would love to come back.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on our podcast today.
Thank you so much, Richard. And thank you for listening, everyone.
Okay, bye.